Everybody, welcome back to the Unlock Podcast. Hopefully it's welcome back at least. We are three business owners from across the country, and we are trying to,
Whoa.
That's maybe a
it just depends on when this episode's released.
Yeah.
That's good.
I have to wait one more week to release that one.
Do you want to retry that, Tony?
Not really, no. I think I like this one.
Business owners from across two different countries.
We have been talking to each other now for, I think we've actually known each other about 7-8 years and been sharing business ideas and practices. And we've been started to record these about 6 months ago and been just trying to help others unlock future growth in their businesses. And today we have an exciting topic. I'm personally excited about this for
many years. You just slid the Unlocked Podcast name.
I know. I see what he did there. That was good. That was good, Tony.
I'm excited for today's topic.
This is impressive.
No.
Show your screen. Are you reading this?
I am not. I can share my screen. I am not.
Liar.
You know, I did actually just think a little bit about a couple of things to say prior to recording, and it made a world of difference. So.
They call that preparation, Tony.
A wise person once told me that prior planning prevents poor performance.
Yes, that's a fact.
I know that same guy, and I think he's a dolt. So just so we're clear. Yeah.
Anyways, so today's topic, very excited for it, mainly because I know it's going to annoy the crap out of Lars. So that's exciting thing number one. Also got some messages from some listeners that they're already looking forward to this topic. They proposed the name change, changing terrible topic Tony to terrific topic Tony. I think that's quite an improvement.
Who said that?
You know, they will remain nameless for their own security protection.
Does it rhyme with Greta?
No.
That's exactly it.
No.
Or was it Uncle Glenn? It was probably Uncle Glenn. He
neither of them. But I do have evidence of a message from somebody that.
So we had we have 3 additional listeners that we're unaware of.
At least 8 or 9 listeners now.
Come on.
Yeah.
My God. Can we take a minute here and acknowledge this child's small shirt that I'm wearing, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I think you stole Katie's shirt there and grabbed the wrong one.
Yeah, hopefully. This is child's husky, but Bone, you did very good. This is one of my favorite shirts now. These are super comfy.
And they are very comfy, yes.
They're very comfy. They're a little tight. Of course, maybe I'm just...
might not be the shirt's fault there.
I look like I got stung by a bunch of bees. Oh, baby.
All right.
Also, Tony has moved out of his sauna, so that's fun.
Yes, there was some work being done outside of my sauna today, some grinding of floors, and it was going to be quite obnoxious, so I had to quickly improvise.
That's on point for you.
Yep.
Yeah, quick
very good
improvisation.
So, retail stores. Wanted to talk about this today because I think a lot of locksmiths have retail stores. Some have many, if you're Ken and have an empire in southern Florida. But
he likes to refer to them as shops. I'm pretty confident.
I wonder if Ken was watching hockey last night.
Was there something that happened in hockey?
I'm not sure how Tampa Bay is doing, but, I think they're going to spend a lot more time on the golf course now.
Oof.
So they're playing well.
Suck it, Ken. They gone. And the Oilers are moving on, boys. So all is right in the world.
Good.
I know, Tony, you want to talk about retail stuff, but more importantly, the Oilers are moving over in the Stanley Cup.
I'm sure all of our listeners care about the Oilers, one of them. Yes. I'm surprised if there's that many that like the Oilers. Anyways, so retail, topic that's intriguing to me. I think in the past, locksmiths have used retail stores for many different reasons, and that use for them has changed throughout the years. And I want to talk a little bit today about how we use retail, what we think it should be used as, and some tips and tricks for people going forward. So for those that don't know, I'm Tony Hokinson from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I'm Chad Lingefelt from Charlotte, North Carolina. We didn't have that one scripted, what order we were supposed to go in, so I'm just
and I'm Lars Johnson from Canada, which in fact is not a country.
That's true.
It is. Yeah.
Jumped into that one
for the American audience. So retail store, Tone, we've got a few.
Okay.
We've got. I got to be specific here. Or I'll get crucified by the listener. We've got 4 just recently closed one. Now we're down to 3.
Okay.
It seems like a necessity. It's always been a necessity because realistically, Probably, what would you say, 95% of your revenue is outside of the retail store?
It's probably relevant to each business. So I want to back up because Tony said that retail stores have served different methodologies or different reasons in the locksmith industry. And I'm curious, what different reasons would you have a retail store outside of an opportunity to sell widgets?
So I think historically retail stores were used as a marketing source. You would go, I know I heard of companies doing this in our area back before I was born. They would, and we actually tried this once too, again, before I was born. You would move into a different geography, open a retail store as a means to get business, or as a means to get business in that area. So
brand awareness stuff. Yeah,
yes, brand awareness.
Before the internet.
Before the internet, you would use it as a way to get a stronghold in a certain area. And I know a company here would do that. They would go open a store, operate there for 5 years or so, and then close the store down. And again, just use it as a marketing source. I think obviously the internet and other means have rendered that mostly obsolete. But that's, I know, one of the main, I mean, obviously, like you said, selling widgets and such in the past. But I believe that from a locksmith standpoint, it was a way to break into new markets.
That was before the Yellow Pages. Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, I think around the same time as the Yellow Pages.
Yeah. That would check out. I do think that there's also, even now, current day, people generally want to deal with people in a local market. Yeah. Especially on the service side. They want to see and deal with people that they trust. So it's interesting, the opening it up for in a different market, but I would never really consider it from a marketing standpoint, but more as a relationship building tactic. But I guess that's what you would be calling marketing. So it's probably relative.
Yeah. And branding. And, I guess the path I was going down was, we have 4 different retail stores. All of our stores are city name Lock and Safe. So we got Edmonton Lock and Safe, Calgary Lock and Safe, Wheatland Lock and Safe. Right. And it is exactly what you're talking about, Chad. It's speaking to that local market because we're wanting to remain local. And yeah, I believe there is some value in being local. So I think that does tie in, I think, somewhat to the strategy you're talking about, Tone. I'm not as sold on the retail side of it because, as I was saying, like, I think it's probably between 5 and 10% of our revenue. So it's really not a big thing. However, when we first got into this game, it was interesting to hear that the local locksmith in our hometown basically made enough from cutting keys in their local shop to pay for their staff.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, in a captivated market, I can understand that. In a major city, it might be a little bit different. And certainly as you scale, I mean, obviously you have more overhead as you scale and just get more people. So I'm not sure, but I certainly would agree with the visibility of it. I'm not convinced myself that, we're on a major street in the city, a major industrial retail zone. I'm not sure people drive by there every day. And then, in 2 years when they need a locksmith, they think, oh yeah, I drove by that locksmith every day. I still think they're going to Google it and find a locksmith that's local, but yeah.
So going back to what you were saying earlier, give listeners a little context of our experience with retail. You said you have 3 stores?
Yeah, we had 4. We just closed one 2 months ago.
Why'd you close it?
Cost, just to bring everyone into one location. Our retail sales didn't offset the cost of rent.
What was like
the logistics?
Was the geography close to your other stores, or?
Yeah, it was right close to downtown.
Okay.
So we had a small community store about a block outside of the edge of downtown, and it just added a layer of complexity, having to inventory 2 stores, having to staff 2 stores, having to have backup, and it just it just didn't make a lot of sense. So, that was closed down, and now we're bringing everyone into a single building, which
makes sense.
I think it's going to make sense. Yeah.
How about you, Chad? How do you utilize retail in your locations today?
Well, we have 3 different locations, and they all operate uniquely different. So I would go back to as I get into that, understanding your customer base and your product offering. I believe if you're offering automotive keys as part of your business, then you're probably going to need a heavier retail presence, because that's a destination that people are going to need to come to get that. So in our unique situation, as LockDoc started, it was a mobile only business and never had a retail location. So we established outside service as a primary and a priority. In about 2010, we started to try to set up a retail location in Charlotte for counter service. And whereas it was almost like a complimentary type addition for some of our existing customers, say a property manager or facility manager needed a couple extra keys, they could come to our office and get them versus having to, either meet a tech or have a service call. It didn't really generate enough revenue to offset the location. We were also using that location as a primary office, but it didn't really, it almost, when you look back on the mathematics around it and the business objectives, we had to staff up to be able to service those customers, but we actually weren't generating enough profit and or revenue really to service having somebody running that counter. Fast forward, our Anderson store was primarily a retail location when we acquired it. They had established themselves in the market there as a come-to place, as a destination. So many of the local entities around the area would bring their locks, bring their keys. That was a place that they would come by almost daily to get work done versus outside service. So those are 2 completely different strategies and structures.
And Chad, I think just to clarify on that, when we're saying people are coming by daily, you're not talking about, see, this is part of it. People outside the industry will hear that and think, people are getting house cut keys.
Yeah. Commercial.
Every day.
K through 12. So a school system, a county school system, they're managing multiple facilities. They will come by and get a couple of keys copied every day. The local county facility maintenance and all those types of things. It's just a regular rotation for them.
Yeah. So if you are geared towards that commercial, industrial, institutional type business, yes, we do get those repeat customers every single day. The commercial property managers, So it's not like residential. People are just popping by.
And now again, it all is very market subjective. And so the reason I'm kind of saying some of this is my theory on it is understanding what your business priority and objectives are and then leaning into that. So in our Anderson store, it is about 25 to 30% of that branch's revenue comes through that retail location. So the remaining of it is outside service, but they have a pretty substantial amount coming through the retail.
And is it located? I'm guessing it's not in a residential area, the Anderson store.
It's just outside of the downtown strip, so within walking distance of downtown.
Right, and is it around it? Are there pizza places and restaurants, or is it industrial like warehouses and things?
It's mixed down that avenue. So there's a section of some industrial type trade services, automotive mechanic, things like that, and storage facilities, so forth. And then there's small residential, and then it's some industrial, and then you have your downtown retail type stuff.
Yeah, because that's I've often said, people don't just drive by a lock shop and be like, oh, hey, let's go have a look at this. Let's pop in and browse. Right. Let's go look at keys and doorknobs.
It's a destination.
Right.
Correct.
It is. Yeah. And especially, one of the I would say viable, has its downsides too, but a viable retail, product are safes.
Yes.
You can make money selling safes by having it on hand, having it available so somebody can pick it up and go. There is, you can make a go of that. That said, you don't have to be on that major strip. You don't have to be, you're a destination. People are looking you up and going there. So while it is retail, I just, I'm trying to kind of clarify when I'm saying retail, I'm not meaning a place people go to browse.
Right.
Yeah, they're typically coming there for a purpose. Now, I will say one of the interesting things that I've seen with our Anderson store, and one of the things they leaned into. So we don't do transponder keys and automotive. We're not going after the automotive market. One thing that they have leaned into are padlocks. So padlocks were never a big seller for us as a product line. Previous, it was, you get them here or there. I just pulled up the stats so far this year, and we're recording this on May 2nd. I don't know when it'll air, but we're recording this on May 2nd. They've sold 964 padlocks at our Anderson location in the first 4 months of the year.
Who's buying those?
A lot of people, but my point.
No, but I mean, seriously, like, is that like that? No, is that
facilities?
Like,
Facilities.
Okay, so it is commercial customers.
Yes. Oh yeah. And they buy them in large sums and quantities. My point of all of it is that we branded the Anderson branch as Anderson's Padlock
Emporium.
Yeah, something. I can't remember. We put a sign up in there.
The Padlock Palace.
Yeah, because it was a big thing that they were leaning into. They were comfortable with it. They knew the product line, and people literally come in there for padlocks. They don't come in there for automotive keys. And we had some people come in there for cylindrical lever sets and et cetera. But that is a big retail location for padlocks for us. So I do think it has an objective and a reason. And I don't think you would have as many padlock sales through a field service, like through a service van or outside service. I think that is a destination.
Yeah. Tone, I know you have the Minneapolis Lock and Key. That's a fairly retail.
Yeah. So we have two retail stores per se. One is located near downtown Minneapolis, kind of South Minneapolis area. It is very mixed. I would say probably 50% residential walk-in, 50% commercial property manager walk-in. And that store is right on a main road, Nicollet Avenue. And again, I don't think, like you said, people aren't walking by and just choosing to walk in, but they are looking it up. They're choosing to use their neighborhood lock shop. That is really how we're advertising it, is use your local neighborhood locksmith. We have another store that is much more of a destination for commercial property managers. I think our one store, Minneapolis store, gets 40 to 50 customers a day. And then we have another store 15 minutes south in Bloomington that gets probably 12 customers a day. That's also our main office. We have thought about trying to consolidate the two, but we know that we would lose a lot of those Minneapolis customers because they wouldn't want to. They want to buy in Minneapolis. We recently picked up a lot of extra business because another Minneapolis locksmith was bought out and closed down. Those commercial property managers, they don't want to drive more than 5-10 minutes to get their locks. 20 minutes is too far.
Right.
So we have them kind of set up differently. Our Bloomington store is much more like it does a lot of shipping out keys and locks and padlocks and stuff. It does most of our project work per se, prep and stuff like that. And we get a handful of walk-in customers, but not enough that's not the main business model that store. The one in Minneapolis, the business model is being there to support that walk-in traffic.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm going to take a little pivot here, but I have a theory on our retail, even though it doesn't do a lot of revenue. I've considered opening a store, and I still think we probably will in the south end of the city. Okay, so in Canada, it's less common for cities to build up; they go out. So Calgary's like 80 miles, right? My math isn't right there, but and instead of going up, it's just a wide open city. So it is a fair drive to go from place A to place B. So I'm not even thinking for the retail customers. I'm more thinking for my guys, because generally speaking, when you have a retail store, you probably have a warehouse in the back.
Yeah.
So when our techs are driving around in vans and they need to pick up a widget, there's an easy way to offset some of the overhead of a secondary warehouse and a satellite warehouse by using that retail store. So that was kind of one of my theories, and putting our retail stores are all on fairly, I'm not going to call them like a commercial retail space, but they're near major junctions, because this is all about ease for our service technicians. So our guys can turn left, hop on the main road and get onto the main interstate, so to speak, within 30 seconds.
So you're effectively saying they're in more industrial business parks. They're not in your traditional retail strip mall setup.
Yeah. So we're literally like 3 blocks off the main interstate in the city. So you take one of the exits and you're right there. And that is intentional. Like, we just bought a building. We're moving 3 blocks, but I didn't want to leave that area because I know customers are going to find us because we're a destination, but I want to limit the amount of time my guys have to drive through residential zones, and I want to get them on major thoroughfares. Right. Yeah. So that would be something else I would look at if we're moving south, is any major roads, basically.
Do you guys have local distribution in your area? You must, right?
We do. And that's, chicken or egg before my time. Our major distributor is about, 15 seconds away. Like, we're almost going to share a parking lot with IDN. So that will be handy. The second thing I wanted to bring up was, I also have a belief, a main reason for how we go to market with our retail is the feeling that not only the customers get when they come in, but also our people, our team. So we put a lot of effort in making it clean. You walk into our retail stores, everything's white. It's all shiny. It's, I modeled it after basically an Apple store, but everything's white and clean, and TVs and technology. And we don't have any keys on our retail store, which is strange. They're all kind of hiding behind. We have a soundproof area that all the key cutting goes, so you can't, in theory, hear it. So we have a pleasant experience, but it's just a nice, clean, tidy, lots of windows, because we want, when our team walks through and walks into that space, they want to have some pride. And it's a whole different feeling than a traditional, lock shop where you walk in and there's 2 duplicators and a wall full of keys, and you look like a lock shop, a traditional, here's $2 for a key and you can get some brass doorknobs and that kind of stuff. So while I'm saying we do have a retail presence, our retail presence is way different. It's more about the mood and the feeling than it is retail.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to, I guess, ask and discuss is the importance of, because when we're talking about a retail location, I think my brain naturally goes to a shopping center with a anchor grocery store, and then boom, there's a locksmith shop in there. And we kicked around that idea back, 7-8 years ago, as we were expanding. Should we keep our main office and inventory and all that stuff here, and then open up a small retail location? And once we did the math on it, the cost for traditional retail space is
astronomical.
I don't know how you would ever overcome that cost by just selling keys and traditional locksmith supplies.
You got to cut a lot of $5 keys to pay for $7,000 in rent.
Like Lars said, it's a destination. People aren't going to just stumble into the locksmith and get their key copied. They're going to say, I need my key copied. Where's the nearest locksmith? I'm going to drive there.
Agreed. But are there retail locations out there in traditional retail spaces that are already paying that? Because there could be a potential model there where the storefront is very small. You've got 1,000 square foot space, tons of stuff crammed in there, and you are a resource. Because I know if you go to Manhattan, those very dense populated areas, those little shops are tucked in all over the place, and they are retail because people are literally walking by and, oh yeah, I need to get additional keys. I need to get a padlock. I need to get a deadbolt, whatever. And they're just rolling in there on a more retail location.
Yeah. And I think that is a strategy for those highly densely populated areas. When I'm talking about retail, I guess I'm guilty of thinking, for me, retail means retail, a bit of office, and some industrial warehouse all in the same location. That's a fairly traditional lock shop where you have your service guys work out of the back door and your retail guys work out of the front door, right? So I guess in some markets, and I've often thought about it, it's, if you have like community grocery stores, right? It's the same kind of idea. Yeah. And I know we have some people like, is it Baldino's, who has it's basically like a hardware shop. Yeah. Where, that's a very interesting model that we've seen where, they were cutting keys, but when you're cutting keys, you kind of look for, hardware as well. So I'll add some hardware, and then, it just kind of grew and evolved into more like a small localized hardware shop.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is a whole different level of retail, because at that point you're selling all sorts of things, not just the locking hardware specifically.
Right.
It's interesting. I was thinking back to what I said earlier about it being a kind of a marketing tactic to break into new area, and I was thinking about we acquired a business up 30 minutes north of us here. And they didn't have an actual retail store, but they had a warehouse, and they would have commercial property managers come in on occasion and get keys cut and such. And what was interesting is the field clientele that they serviced was different than ours. They would have CBRE property managers, which is a real estate manager in our area. I'm thinking most areas, that would come in up there, and then they would give them field work up there. And we would have CBRE property managers come in down here, and we would get their field work down here. So there was definitely, like, you would think from CBRE standpoint, it'd be logical to use the same locksmith for everything, but those facility managers would do a lot of the work themselves, and they would come in to get their keys cut and their locks rekeyed. They'd go take them off the door and bring them in. So there is definitely some value for commercial property managers to have a locksmith that is, 10 to 20 minutes away to get their, stuff done quickly. So there is still probably some sort of a strategy there of maintaining a local presence, but I don't know if it's as viable as it once was.
I remember right shortly after we acquired the location down in Anderson, South Carolina, that was at that point primarily a walk-in retail location. They had very little outside service, and we were standing in there one day chit-chatting about some things and trying to figure something out, and a gentleman came through the front door of the retail location carrying a residential door with a lock set on it because he needed the lock rekeyed. I joke not, the entire door, he pulled it off the hinges and just brought the entire door because he couldn't figure out how to get the lock set off. So it was a destination. That wasn't like he just randomly popped in for that. He came there with a purpose.
You don't think he was just walking down the street with the door? Yeah. Probably part of this equation that we are maybe overlooking a bit is you're looking at the general cost of retail space or general cost of real estate in general relative to cost of what we're selling, right? You look at, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, the retail rent and leasing space was quite low, and keys, you'd sell for $2.50, $2.25, something like that. So as relative to the rent, it wasn't much. Nowadays, rent has gone up probably 2, 3, 5, 10x in some places. And the key prices, if you're expensive keys are $6.
Yep.
So they've only gone up 2, maybe 3x plus labor and everything. So just the retail side is a lot harder go to offset that overhead cost, I think.
Here's something else to consider when you're talking about retail, and it's very, and I'm not sure what your guys' perspective is on this, but I had an eye-opening conversation with a business a couple of weeks ago where when they started in their space, I think it was 10 years ago, their rent was $350 a month. Yeah. Which in all contexts, and it's escalated now to $1,000 a month.
Oh,
right.
That's Chad. You spend that on coffee and beard oil.
But if you process that, what we're just talking about, the expense of retail in terms of the key price isn't all that. Well, that's not relative. If you're only paying $1,000 a month in rent, that's very viable. You can maintain decent key prices and use the space very infrequently, and it does pay for itself because that's in a lot of times cheaper than some just random storage warehouse. So it's contextually, I don't even know how to process that when they told me that their rent rate, because I know what ours are in all three of our markets, is wildly different. So
I'm not sure I could get a storage facility for $350 a month.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that's about right.
Yeah. So, I guess the reason I say that is people that might be listening to this may say, "Well, you're out of context because I only pay $500 for my space." So,
I think what's interesting, it's not just the cost of the space, but the cost of staffing retail. When you're doing field service, you're going to the customer on your time frame. So you're planning things out. Everything you do is proactive. We're going to go here, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here. Where in a retail environment, you're at the customer's mercy. All of a sudden, you got 8 people at your door, and then for the next 4 hours, you got no one there.
Zero. Yeah.
So it's like you end up it's really hard to have the same revenue per labor hour ratio that you would in the field. And there's an extra employee cost there too.
Correct. Retail is unpredictable if you are a destination, and therefore you get the ebb and flow, you get the high density and then nothing for a while.
Yeah, I would agree with that for unique items. Like certainly if you're selling safes, which is pretty common in our industry, you are going to have that ebb and flow. Like we have a door monitor, right? So we count how many people come in every day, and we can see what time. So between 8 and 8:30, high traffic, and between 11:30 and 1:30, high traffic. The rest of the day we can basically be closed. Now that said, I'm thinking, and my bias, I always go back to kind of our main brands. But then I realized, so our Wheatland lock and safe, so a little town of Strathmore is, 25 minutes away or so. I've been asked many times because it does very, very little revenue. It doesn't offset the cost of staffing it. And so I keep getting asked, why don't we just close it down? But part of me just keeps saying, I want to have that presence in the small town. So what we did is we've reduced the hours. So I think it's only open from, might be like 9 to 1 or something, like Monday to Thursday. And then, but it's still that, again, my main reason for it is it's still that warehouse space. So our guys are in the area, they can just pop in there and get what they need rather than having to come back to the city.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I've heard other companies doing that, like 10 to 2, middle of the day, or allowing commercial property managers to come in, and the commercial property managers know, hey, they're in this building, I can call them. But for the general walk-in, if you're a residential customer, the Google advertised hours are 10 to 2 or whatever. That's a good tip.
In true small town fashion, we literally have a handwritten sign, like a piece of paper with marker written on it, saying out on a call. Here, call me at this number, and tape it on the door when he goes out. Like if somebody gets locked out, he just puts that on the door and goes out. Because in a small town, that's acceptable. That's understandable. And then they give him a call. Hey, what are you doing? When are you going to be back?
Yep.
And that
I can determine if I want to wait or not. So all 3 of our locations have 3 different hours for retail or for customers to come in. Charleston is appointment only because the staff there is mostly outside. So
mobile,
So they can coordinate that. Charlotte is only from, I think, 11 until 3 right now, because we did all the measurements and we realized that was basically our most compact, and it was difficult to staff it for 8 hours for the amount of people that are coming in.
And I'm guessing that's a commercial focused business to your location.
Correct. Yeah. Charlotte is effectively a city counter. You come by whenever you need something, but we've been able to consolidate those hours. And then Anderson is open 8 to 4, so it's the one that's got more consistent traffic coming in all the time.
Probably more. And I bet you it's all location, because I've been to your Charlotte store, Chad, and it's unique. It's not obvious. It's obviously a destination, right? You have to get there, turn off, and come down the road, turn off, go in the parking lot, and right. So it's not like you drive by and see it. And that's the one that's fairly commercial focused.
Well,
right?
you do see the giant green awnings when you drive by.
You can see it from the interstate, but it's not obvious how to get there from the interstate for sure.
There's a little mute button there, Tone, if you want.
Yeah, and got to reach up there.
Just tap it right there.
So where's it going? Tony? Oh no, I was just going to say. So where's it going? What's the future of retail? Look into the crystal ball. Let us know.
Oof. I think it's more and more going to become that destination. I think you're going to see a lot of traditional, like you were talking about the cost of rent, the traditional retail lock shops, unless you're selling safes. You're going to see them move and try to save costs into more warehouses. Again, we're taking a business and putting it in a retail setting when it doesn't need to be in a retail setting. So I think you're going to see more and more locksmiths move into warehouses, lean into that destination. I think you are going to see more and more businesses truncate their hours and gear it for their target market. I think, Chad, your comment you made earlier was really good about making sure that you're figuring out what your business's goals are and match your retail strategy to those goals.
Correct. If you want to be a retail location, you could do that and probably be profitable, but you got to put all your energy in that.
Yeah.
If you are going to focus on automotive, then you would probably want to have a destination where you can maybe have some bays that you could pull cars in so that you don't have to work on them out in the sun. If you're going to be a commercially focused application, you may want to have some city counters so that you can just be able to service that. Really finding that niche, as one would say, to focus on.
It's not a niches. Yeah, that's the correct word. Tony, I just want to point out, isn't it cute that Chad said we need a bay so our guys aren't working in the sun? Like, what a limited world. We need bays. So when it's minus 4,000, our guys are freezing to death.
Yes. I don't think any of our techs would say we need a bay to work in Charlotte.
Get out of the sun. Yes. Yeah, we got to get out of the sun.
They'd be thrilled.
all perspective, right? Yeah. So
what a world.
I lost my train of thought.
So leaning into your business model, because everybody can make money and be profitable if they're true. It goes back to the episode that we recorded a couple of weeks ago on specialist versus generalist. It's hard to have a retail location if you are a generalist, because then you are going to spread yourself so thin, and you're going to walk into a retail location that has everything, and its product's not going to move. I walked through a shop a couple of weeks ago. The guy had product in there, and I looked at it. Average turns were about 3 years. That's a lot of product that's sitting there with dust on the shelf.
Oof.
So that's I don't think that can be profitable, because you're not churning the inventory. But if you are in an area where you're churning a specific segment of products, then it's probably going to be worth it. As a matter of fact, when we acquired our Anderson store, we pulled product off from the 90s, legit. So it had been sitting there for
bought
30 years.
Threw it in the dumpster.
Correct. Yeah, but I'm saying investment. That's a long turn.
That's a long turn. That's Tony's life.
I don't even know if you can call it a turn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one of the things that we had kind of discussed or had the theory on around cross-selling, or are using your retail location as an opportunity. Somebody comes in for keys. Are you able to sell them other things? What are your thoughts on that? How does that functionally work? Do you see that people actually doing that, or is your staff just trying to cut the key and get out of there?
We have not I don't believe, done a good job of that. I don't know. We have never done really training for it. We've never really tried. I've had the idea behind it. Like you said, I think you guys have seen our showroom. We have displays set up for access control and cameras, and we have stuff for people to kind of self-educate themselves on. But there's a balance there between, if you took one of our sales guys and put them in the retail store, they wouldn't want to do the retail locksmithing aspect. At the same coin, the person that's cutting the keys, they probably don't want to be a salesperson. That are not. It's a different persona. Correct. It's a, if we went back to culture index, is a far different culture index to the person that's going to sell somebody access control as opposed to rekey or lock. So we've been trying to, as we've grown our retail store, trying to at least hire one person that is a little bit more sales oriented. But I definitely would say we've not done a good job of training on that or really setting people up, educating them to do that.
Yeah, I like the theory of it, and I think there's practical application there. It is a matter of discipline and, again, finding the right person, because I think most of the time, especially when you have 2 and 3, 4, 5 people deep, if they are in that retail location, it's just a matter of do what they need and get them back out the door.
Mm-hmm. There's possibly a intentional effort to there that you could look at your repeat customers, who's coming in the door the most, and then do some proactive selling per se to them. So, hey, Jim walks in 5 times a month. I'm going to reach out to Jim proactively and sit down and take him to coffee and see, are there other things we can do for Jim that he's not able to do himself?
Or why are you coming in here for keys so frequently?
Correct. So that's probably actually a good strategy.
But I like the strategy. The question is, who's responsible for managing and executing that? Because I guess I'll talk to you from my experience. I think we have some really amazing individuals that service our customers when they walk in. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Their primary objective is not to try to understand their ultimate needs and sell them another solution. They are just trying to solve the current need and move them along so that the next person can be serviced as well. And I have found, because I like to sit around and chit chat with people, when I'm out at the front counter, or if I see somebody standing in the front lobby and I go talk to them, then I can unlock additional opportunities. But that's obviously not the best. That's not, let's see what you did there. But that's not the best. That's not the best use of my time either, to be sitting at the front counter and chit-chatting with people.
But I think you could take somebody, you have an end user specialist, salesperson in your business. You could take him and have him go chat with the person that works the counter and say, hey, who are your top 10 customers that I should go meet with? Can you make an introduction for me? And go grab coffee with them or something.
So, and this may be a future episode, so I don't want to go too much off a tangent on this. How do you train, or how do you teach people to ask those questions to start thinking that way? Because my experience is I'll come in and say, hey, I noticed that Bob has come in 15 times to get keys made. Does anybody know why Bob has come in 15 times to get keys made? And the typical answer is because he needs additional keys. But what's the root? And that's, I'd be interested in a future episode. So let's actually save that one for whenever I get to pick the episode.
Triple T, write that down.
Around how to ask those questions to get people thinking in that mentality, because I don't think that we're natural. I don't think that's just a natural thing that we're focused on, and so that's a limiting factor in the retail application.
Is that something that can be trained on, or is that a personality?
I think everything's trainable. I think more is natural. Some people are going to be naturally inclined to do that kind of stuff, but I think you can teach anybody anything. I've been. I
don't know if you're ever going to dunk a basketball, Lars.
Wow. If you lower the rim down to,
I did think of that right after I said it.
I have dunked a basketball.
On a 10-foot rim?
The little Tykes thing doesn't
What
count.
other rims are there, guys?
Well, I mean, like you said, you could lower it.
What did you jump off of to get to the 10-foot rim?
Honestly, if I jumped right now, I feel like
you would fall apart.
Like every bone in my body would shatter. I would just be a puddle laying on the ground.
That'll be the story for the next time that we get together.
Can you really dunk a basketball in a 10-foot rim?
Right now, today, not a chance.
But you have?
I can hardly get off the toilet these days. But that's a. This my dunking history
I'm
is
just
a nice
sitting there
topic
processing.
here. But
Lars, Tony's asking if you can dunk a basketball, and literally the last time we were together after we played golf, you were on the couch with an ice pack on your knee.
yeah.
Well, now I'm just curious. Like,
And
he
I
is a
don't.
relatively athletic person. He played volleyball. Maybe he has hops that I'm not aware of.
I'll find a video. I'll post a video.
Great.
So this is good content for everyone hearing about this, but
I mean, that probably was the highlight of the podcast. Right there.
that is, maybe that'll be the cut. I'm going to go back and just point out that I guess, right now, currently, we just bought a new building. And I was there before this podcast because you guys were so late. I had time to go there, and we're designing our new showroom.
Redecorate.
I was but I've got a new theory. So I'm going to talk through that just a little bit. And I know I'm going to turn this into my takeaways because this has got me thinking about it.
I like it. Good job.
But
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri didn't get it either.
Siri wanted
join the club. Now my Siri's activated.
Yeah,
Here
everyone has stopped saying that word. Okay. But so we're going to a smaller retail section of our store. The big difference this time is we are hiring retail associates. And we just hired our first one, a girl named Sarah, a week or two ago, I think maybe a week ago. But her job isn't locksmithing. Her job is retail. And it's to talk to customers and figure out what they're more of a sales-oriented role. And then the locksmiths are actually in a different room. They're behind a wall. They're there to do what locksmiths do. Fix things, rekey locks, everything like that. Because I want our retail store clean and clear. In our retail store, there's a section for safes, specifically because those are high margin, generally speaking, low turnover items. But I feel a company called Calgary Lock and Safe should probably sell safes.
Might be cheaper to just change your name.
And locks. The king of the rebranding, Tony. But so I have a section for safes. We have retail counter in the middle, and they're just pedestals. We have no keys in it. We have lots of TVs going up that are showing different solutions that we have. We have another section that is for our smart division. So it'll show, an intercom. It shows, hopefully we'll have a parcel delivery, key boxes, all the integration stuff. We'll have a section for cameras, have a section for card access just on the wall. And then after this conversation today, one of the classics is, what does a locksmith do? We show up and we can fix that door, and oh, we didn't know you did doors. Right. So I'm now thinking I might just have a section on a wall that says something along the lines of, yeah, we do this stuff too. And then just have, a spattering of different door hardware that'll just be there, not with the intention of selling it retail, that somebody's going to walk in and want an Adams Rate flip up. But when those commercial property managers come in to get 20 keys, and they turn around and they say, oh, you guys door closers, and oh, you guys do that. Oh, you guys actually do that stuff. More just like once we've got a captivated audience, they might see, oh, you can do that stuff too. So, because I think that's probably a pretty inexpensive, easy thing to make happen.
Yeah. One thing that I have always kind of had this idea for, and we've never been able to execute it because multiple reasons, haven't quite figured out how to bring it to life. But we have figured out a way to develop a freestanding door and frame wall, and we use it for installation videos. But it's literally just I think it's about 8.5 or 9 foot tall, maybe just over 4 foot wide, and a door and frame fit right in it. I would like to figure out a way to expand off of it and almost have like I don't know what the term is called, but kind of call out annotated signage, so that could stand in a retail location, because you would have a card reader on it, and you'd have a door operator and a door closer and an exit device. Like basically load the thing up with all the different components of hardware, and then have everything labeled and annotated so that an individual could interact with it on the showroom floor. So, not just, a lot of times we see the things on a display board, but if you could functionally have everything in your office annotated, you would then now be showing the things that people are actively integrating with or interacting with.
So we actually have that. We have a door that goes into my office, and it's got everything on it that we sell, with little call outs explaining what it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got a continuous hinge on there, wireless lock, strike, a bit door frame, operator.
Can you send a picture of that?
World's most expensive door. Yes, I can do that. And we also have another door.
Is that the door to the sauna?
Yeah. Absolutely.
The door to the sauna has everything on it.
I will go get some videos of that. I can take zero credit for this. This was all Dean's idea. But we also have another mini door that we call Kevin. And it's a little transportable door. The original idea was to be able to bring it to trade shows. And then we realized that it weighs about 300 pounds, so it wasn't the most conducive for that. But
that's one of my most memorable.
We've now created Kevin Jr. So
Kevin's chunky. Yeah,
that was one of my most memorable visits to Minneapolis, was watching Tony deliberate with someone about purchasing the components for Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know if it was much of a deliberation.
Oh, yeah, it was exciting. All right, we probably are about to wrap this episode up. So Lars has got the next episode because Tony has put his
So I decided that
put his foot in the sand.
Good as I am at coming up with topics, I do feel like you guys can add some value from time to time, and I think you have some good ideas. So I wanted to get into a rotation here of I pick a topic, Lars picks a topic, Chad picks a topic, and I think that can add some spice to our topics, and maybe Lars can come up with something good.
And generally just make them better. I would agree with that.
So,
less terrible topic, Tony, more, but you have such good alliteration for that.
I know.
Lars is, I don't know.
Lars is languishing.
Okay, are you guys ready for this? This is the first one, and this will...
Is somebody ready to write this down? Because
I got it.
I will also say it and not remember.
Yep, I got it.
I've got it. Okay, so this is, for next week, the top 5 best pieces of advice you've ever received.
Period.
So it looks like you just pulled up our list and took the first one you saw off there. Well done.
No, it was the 8th one, but I think it's a good one. So we're going to discuss the best 5 pieces of advice you've ever received.
Yeah. To give you some credit, I do believe you wrote that one on the list. So at least you took one of your original topics.
Well, yeah, I keep writing them down, and you keep coming up with retail and crap. So we're going to go a top 5. Chad,
I like that.
You're going to have to talk to Beeve and get us a top 5 list, because I want a drum roll.
Yeah.
So we each are going to say our best top 5?
Oh, that's going to
that'll be long.
Yeah. For the record, I think it's a terrible topic.
Okay.
Someone had to say it.
And that's perfect. So Chad can shove it up his nose, and I will give you my 5 best piece of advice I ever received. Chad, can you show some mercy and wrap this up? Bring us home. Where can they find us? Assuming that they might want to come back.
So before he does that, I did want to say I actually got some value out of this podcast. I learned that there might still be some. No, I'm saying that because
I'm glad that we spend all the time and effort so Tony can get some value out of this podcast.
Is like, retail, this is going to be dumb. I can't believe we're going to do this. And more so, I'm just trying to give myself a pat on the back for picking a good topic. But
I can agree with.
I learned. I actually think there's more value in I think my biggest takeaway is that there may not be value in as much value as there once was in the actual retail presence, but I do believe that having locations in specific areas does bring some value from a warehouse standpoint, and just commercial property managers being able to use you on occasion, finding some ways to limit limit the hours you're open to make those stores more profitable. But I do think that there's there's a reason to having a physical footprint, and I learned that today. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Well, glad that this was beneficial for Tony. Hopefully it was beneficial for others that were listening as well. And if so, this would be your opportunity to subscribe. One major benefit is it is absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything but to subscribe. We have our podcast is available on all major podcast networks, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also see the video version of this on YouTube. Everything is available. Links and a blog about today's episode is available as well on our website, unlockedpodcast.com. And coming soon, unreleased date, is a swag shop where you'll be able to purchase the high quality apparel that Lars is wearing right now. Actually, the shirt he is wearing, because
if you have any children, if you have any children, I'll sell you this one.
He'll autograph it and ship it to you from Canada. You'll receive it in 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, man.
And
it's going to be an expensive shirt too, coming from Canada.
Plus 20% tariffs.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So if you would like to order your own $125 t-shirt, we'll have that in our swag shop as well, coming in the very soon weeks.
For those who are wondering, they are properly sized too. He just either chose the wrong size or expanded since grabbing it.
He's embracing back in the day when he was dunking, that particular size that he was wearing then.
That's true.
Thank you for joining us today. We will see you on the next exciting episode, talking about the top 5 things that someone has told us ever, period. The best advice that they were given.